What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/ All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. We apologize for yesterday timing with my flights out to New York, along with Steelers practice and Jacob getting all the inside scoops over at UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. Kind of made things a little complicated, but we're here, we're ready, we're rocking. Excited to bring you guys another episode here on this Friday morning. Make sure to find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Minicamp has wrapped up. I'll ask you about it here in a minute, but first, it's a beautiful one here in the good old New York City. I was going to say the Berg, but we're not in the Berg, and it just feels unnatural. Hey, how you feeling this morning, my friend?
Feeling good. I hope everything's good in the Big Apple. I hope you and Jillian have a great time this weekend and get to celebrate your love first and foremost. I'm doing good over here. Pittsburgh's hanging in there. It's a little cloudy right now, but we're all right because spirits are high. Everybody's lifted up following minicamp finishing up. It was probably the best mini camp, or the most anticipated, most talked about Steelers mini camp, probably at least that I can remember. I mean, I'm feeling good over here, and I think everybody in terms of Steelers Nation's feeling a little bit better with mini camp coming to a conclusion.
Yeah, I agree. I think minicamp's the first time where you start to get a little bit excited. You know, you start to get a feel for these guys, who's going to shine, who are the sleepers. That's the biggest one, is who are the sleepers for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think they have a couple of them. When you look at this roster during OTAs, it was incomplete because there was no quarterback. And that was where all the attention was like, okay, yeah, Roman looks big. Calvin Austin looks fast. There's no DK Metcalf. Mason, awesome. Will Howard, cool. But everybody knew that all eyes were on, okay, what's going to happen when Aaron Rodgers does show up? And he showed up, and then immediately you start paying attention to other things. You got to pay attention to the wide receivers. You got to pay attention to the defensive line and the linebackers and the corners and the tight ends that we are most definitely going to talk about. And you started to get a feel of the Steelers have some pieces. And it was good to be able, and shout out to Aaron Rodgers for making that possible, to take your eyes off of the quarterback situation, put them on the rest of this team, and see who else came out on top. And I think there were some good names. I'll ask you this: your first day there yesterday, what was your biggest takeaway? We'll obviously dive into names here and there throughout this podcast, but your biggest takeaway being there yesterday of what you saw.
Two things were the biggest takeaways for me, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but the biggest takeaway was the standout clear winner from minicamp for me, which was Darnell Washington, and we can get into more of that in a minute. But also the team morale, the team spirit that seemed to already be instilled within the locker room, and these sort of universal messaging that they all were talking about. I heard like a common thread of coming together, and this is ideally the time that this is going to happen, right? With minicamp exiting, with training camp just on the horizon. Of course, everyone's talking about like team bonding, about team building, and everyone has like a very optimistic, whether it's realistic or not, but an optimistic view of what they can do in the upcoming season. So the Steelers are certainly in that moment right now, but across the board, rookies, veterans, everybody who was in the locker room and coming off the field, and everybody I got the chance to kind of chat with yesterday, it was clear that they're all kind of united and coming together with the same goal, and that's to win a Super Bowl. And so it wasn't a pressure, it wasn't a sort of sense of we have to get this done or else it's a failure, but it was just a kind of calm, cool, but collected sort of feeling that everyone already has. And for that to be there already, it was you could feel it. It was encouraging, and that was probably the biggest takeaway from the final day of minicamp for me.
Yeah, I was loving that, and Darnell to me, was the biggest winner as well. Like you looked at Darnell Washington and who he was, and I know I'm lagging. I'm gonna fix it here in a second, but you look at Darnell Washington and who he was, and it kind of felt like coming into this year, my expectations, at least for Darnell Washington, were okay, he's going to be a big guy. Chances are he gets passed up on the depth chart by somebody. The Steelers are bringing Donald Parham in. Seems like that's the guy that the Steelers want Darnell to be, but they're okay with him, kind of taking a step backwards, just being essentially another tackle. And then he showed up and he looks, I don't want to say skinnier. It's like almost impossible for Darnell Washington to look skinnier. That's just not a real possibility. The man's massive. But he looks more nimble. He looks more conditioned for sure. And his hands, his route running looks way better. And to be honest with you, like this is the first time, and we've hyped up Darnell Washington every single year, but this is the first time that I watched Darnell and just said, like, there's actual tangible evidence that he is better this season than he's been in years past. That's huge, because in years past, last year, you're just hyping it up. You're going, all right, like, Darnell, year 2, better offensive coordinator, better system. He should work well. Year 1, you're just hoping for the best. You're essentially taking a guy who played tackle at Georgia and saying, yeah, I think he could, that one hurdle over the guy that everybody replays every single time, that guy's going to turn into a stud. But you're looking at you look at a guy like Darnell right now, and it just feels like he's coming up with contested catches. He's staying on the field throughout all of practice. He's being involved in the passing game. He's the first or second read sometimes in routes. All these things didn't happen. And I love it, to be honest. I think the Steelers, all the Jonnu Smith talk, all the Kyle Pitts talk, yeah, that makes sense. If the Steelers are going to go get another tight end, I get it. You're adding another playmaker to a list of playmakers, but you don't need it because Darnell Washington's here. And I'd rather give Darnell that opportunity than anybody else, because Darnell's here. Darnell's part of this. Darnell fits what Arthur Smith is looking for in the run game. And if you can figure it out in the pass game and just be an extension of the tight end room that has hands, I think it works so well, to be honest with you. Darnell to me is the clear-cut winner, and what he can be. I'll ask you, do you get the sense, I mean, you saw yesterday, you got to dive into that offense and see how much he was on the field. Do you get the sense he's going to be utilized more? And as you answer that, I'm going to switch Wi-Fi so that we're good to go. So I might dip for a second, but I'll be back, I promise.
You got it. Yeah, so I think that it was pretty clear to me seeing this offense for the first time and seeing them come together, even in these practice sessions, that he is the tight end 2 in every sense of the word, in every single way. I think what Noah already mentioned here was bang on. I think there might have been a team directive for everyone to just get like as thin as possible, not in a bad way, but we talked about it with Broderick Jones a couple of days ago, and Darnell Washington too. The most that this massive hulking man can become, slender or a thinner version. I think he is just at his probably like physically thinnest that he could be, while also looking imposing as ever. So there is clearly a progression that has happened with him from year 1 to year 3, and he looks like an imposing tight end. So I think all the opportunities are there for him right now. And there was one thing that I noticed, and I was across on the other practice field whenever I saw it, but in between sort of like drills, Darnell was working with, I assume, the tight end coach, and they were running through like this sort of drill of the ball coming in at like all kinds of different angles and different catch points. And it's clear that his blocking is already tackle like, and he's gotten better at that, and he's maintained that. So he's already the best blocking tight end that the Steelers have, but it's clear that there is an emphasis from the coaching staff and from him just as a player on improving the playmaking skills, being a more viable target. And I think that just lines up perfectly with what the Steelers want to do on offense, what Arthur Smith wants to do, what Aaron Rodgers wants to do on offense. And yeah, I mean, it's a hype train that I'm fully on right now, but I think the opportunity more than anything is there for him to become a legitimate tight end too.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Steelers believe in that. That's why they called the Miami Dolphins because they're just interested. They're calling everybody, from what I've heard, they're just picking up the phone. Omar's every day, just like, all right, well, this is team 30 of 32. We're just going to see who's available. You're calling Miami. Who else are you calling about? You're not calling about Tyreek Hill. You're not calling about Jalen Waddle. That's Jaden
Yeah,
Waddle. Why am I
Jalen.
screwing up on that? Jalen. Thank you. You're calling about Jonnu Smith because he's the only one that's in a contract year and that you're looking at going, maybe, that one makes some sense. But I agree with you. I don't think that they're super interested. Darnell seems to be the guy. I got another name for you that's big, and then we'll dive into some little guys here soon. But I got another name that I thought was very, very impressive for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's Minkah Fitzpatrick. To be honest with you, it's too early to say this. It's too early to say this. But if you were going to guess who's about to be back of all the Steelers stars who maybe have struggled in years past, Minkah looks like that guy. Minkah looks smooth. Like Minkah last year, you could kind of feel just like, there was something missing. There was something up. Something wasn't working. Where we stand today, watching him at OTAs and minicamp, Minkah looks good. Minkah looks like he trusts his corners for the first time in maybe a while. Minkah looks like him and Deshaun Elliott know what they're doing together. Minkah looks like he's got a third safety in Juan Thornhill and some actual linebackers in front of him. Minkah looks good. Minkah looks like Minkah, to be totally honest with you. And again, it's too early to say that he's back, but Minkah impressed so much throughout the last 3 weeks, and I am like, if there's anybody to be excited for, it's all these guys. Darnell Washington would be awesome, but nothing means more to the Pittsburgh Steelers of anybody we'll talk about today than if Minkah Fitzpatrick is a legit superstar once again in the secondary. And I'm not going to say he can't be. Last year I was like, Minkah might be on the verge of not being that guy anymore. He certainly looks better this year.
Yeah, I mean, there is no doubting that there is just like a renewed sense just across the board, and I think Minkah looks, rejuvenated. I think he looks hungry in a different way,
Yes.
and I don't know if it's just this like the Aaron Rodgers effect of just having a new starting quarterback that feels different and feels trustworthy within the locker room to deliver them to what they're trying to do, but. I mean, across the board, like this was my first day. I wasn't there the first 2 days when you were covering them, but the Minkah, Cam, all of the veterans, like the leaders of the team, they just look like they are rejuvenated in such a different way. And they even, at training camp last year, everyone's at the clean slate, sure, but there wasn't this sense of like, we're here and the pressure is somewhat off, or the pressure was always felt like it was just ratcheted up so much, but it just felt like Minkah was just having a grand old time, but he was dominating. He looked athletic in a freakish way. And yeah, I think he's setting up again. Minicamp is an easy trap to fall into in terms of the hype train, but yeah, it's exactly what you want to see out of your star safety and one of your anchors on the defense. So yeah, I'm eager now to see what training camp looks like for him if this is a continuation. Because yeah, 2025 could be the resurgent year for Minkah Fitzpatrick. The possibility feels likely now, way more than it did a month ago.
I agree. It's where if Minkah's back, the Steelers defense has an opportunity to be elite, and there are some questions, Deshaun Elliott, you got to look at Deshaun Elliott and go, that dude was a stud last year, but the rest of his career, he wasn't a stud, and you're hoping that stays, but I hope it does, because that guy last year at times was the best player the Steelers had on their entire football team, offensive and defensive. You're hoping Patrick Queen takes a step forward. You're hoping Peyton Wilson becomes a 3-down inside linebacker and that Cole Holcomb's a dude again. You're hoping that guys like Derek Harmon are better than Larry Ogunjobi, and that you have these dudes, and TJ could figure it out on the outside. And if all that happens, which, I think more likely than not it's going to, if Minkah's that dude, he becomes the X factor. He becomes the difference maker of like the Steelers defense is one of the best in the NFL, because that's what they missed last year. They had nobody to be the guy outside of TJ Watt and Cam's a defensive tackle. Like he's not changing a game. Minkah's a dude who could change a game, and he's done it in the past. And if he could do it again, I'm excited. All right. Outside of Darnell, who stood out to you yesterday? Give me some names.
Can I give you one that I know is not necessarily important going into training camp, but is noteworthy nonetheless, and that would be Skylar Thompson. Uh, you know,
Okay.
not that I see it going anywhere, but I think it's just worth noting that in terms of, not that Will Howard or Mason looked bad or anything like that, or even right, like all of the quarterbacks looked good. Mini camp is designed in many ways to help them look their best and to feel out the offense. But yeah, it was just nice to see that there's going to be an actual legitimate competition for Will Howard to earn the quarterback 3 position. It's not, we knew he's QB4 as the rookie. It's a given, but he's going to have to actually earn, just moving up the depth chart at all. So it's going to be an intriguing little position battle in camp there. But aside from him, I think, I've been banging the drum already for him, but Calvin Austin looks like improved in many ways, but also just like a leader within the wide receiver group. He looks like he's setting the tone. He's the first going through all of the drills yesterday. He was putting in an effort that set the tone and everyone else matched coming in after him. So he seems like he's ready to take the next step, both as a player and within his sort of leadership rank within the locker room as well. So
Yeah.
that stood out for sure. And it was great to see Rodgers just move around a little bit. He was going through the motions. It's nice to see that he is getting a little bit looser. He definitely seemed to have shaken off the rust that he
Yes.
kind of looked like he had on day 1 and day 2. He seemed more
Yes.
limber. He seemed more loose. So it was very exciting. And one other name that I really was really excited to watch going into as well, but was impressed nonetheless, was Jack Sawyer. I mean, he is talk about players who look massive, up close compared to maybe how he already seemed to have an impressive build, and that was part of the allure the Steelers have for sure. But yeah, he looked impressive in individual drills. He looked pretty impressive when he was on the field in 7-on-7s in the 2-minute drill. So yeah, I think he has a nice opportunity here. The edge position is obviously a deep one for the Steelers right now, but I think there's going to be opportunities for him to continue to stand out in his rookie year.
I agree. The Jack Sawyer one is awesome because I agree with you. It's hard to look good as an edge rusher right now, or like at least to take it seriously because you
Mhm.
don't know like when Broderick's actually lined up in front of you and Troy Fautanu's kicking your butt. Like, how do you respond? What happens there? Like, but there were moments for sure where and last year you saw it with Nick Herbig. Like there were moments where he just smoked Troy Fautanu or Broderick Jones, and you're going, look at there might not be pads on, but that guy was explosive. And Jack Sawyer did that a bunch of times during minicamp. I like that one. Skylar Thompson's hilarious. What a standout there. What were your thoughts of Rodgers yesterday? That's an interesting one. What'd you see out of him?
I saw a man who looks relatively healthy 2 years post, a very devastating lower body injury. I mean, it's impressive. He looks like
Yeah,
he has, some quickness there still in the legs. I'm not anticipating him being a running quarterback by any stretch, or even by any
no,
stretch of Aaron Rodgers' version of that. But nonetheless, I think he still has the footwork and the quickness to, get out of a pocket if it collapses a little bit too quickly. And we know he's going to be throwing the ball anyways. But yeah, he looked good. The drills he was running through were, a couple little hippity hops and then rolling out with a bootleg and throwing the ball, but he had some nice zip on it. And it was, he was going back and forth with Skylar Thompson, the new QB2, obviously. No, I'm just kidding. But he was going back and forth with all the other guys, with Howard and Rudolph. And it looked like already like he's taken a leadership role fully on in just 3 days. And all the other 3 quarterbacks are flocking to him, looking for whatever they can glean off of Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, overall impressed. And I think even more so, I think the Steelers are impressed with him. So you can tell how invested they are in Rodgers already.
I agree. I agree. And it was good. Like day 1 to day 2 was a significant step. I thought he looked,
Mhm.
day 1, you were just like, wow, dude, that is the release is so quick, the little sidearm sling thing. And you're going, man, dude, that was my first impression. Was the first time I saw him do the little sidearm, like flick thing, I was like, that's Aaron Rodgers, dude. Like, that's at the end of the day, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like Russell Wilson showed up. You're like, cool, Russell Wilson. But like, Aaron Rodgers is a first ballot. Aaron Rodgers beats anybody else that plays the game of football into the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? He retires after the season. It doesn't matter who else retires. Aaron Rodgers is the first one inducted into the Hall of Fame in his class. Does not. There are no. Patrick Mahomes retires. There's an argument, but besides that, like, it's Aaron Rodgers. And the first time I was like, whoo. But there was rust. You could tell that. Day 2, you could tell he shook it off. I'm glad to see day 3. It was more. And I'm excited for these guys. I'll go back to the defensive side of the football. I got one more name for it. Oh, also I do, before we do that. Did you catch any DJ Thomas Jones out there? Did you catch the fullback?
I tell you what, I was just briefly, I was not as keyed in on him as you have been, but I mean, I can see why there's some arguments being made for a true fullback position coming back for the Steelers. I just think there is a lot of hope, or a lot of plans with Arthur Smith's offense to be very smash mouth and to be very sort of physical, and that lends itself ideally to a fullback who also can be, who also has a bit of athleticism, which again, DJ Thomas Jones certainly shows off. So there's some pieces there. There's some traits that certainly make it enticing. So we'll see. I wish I had gotten a better look or a longer look at him, maybe, to really get on that hype train as well. But
that's all right.
All right. Impressive nonetheless. A fullback looking impressive is a
hard
difference.
To do. It's hard to do. Jack Coletto was here, and I was just like, dude, he's just a fullback. Like, I don't care anything else. He's a fullback. I'm a fan, big fan. DJ Thomas Jones he's my guy. And on top of that, like, I spoke to him, and he said that he transferred from Ole Miss to Southern Alabama because it came down to money, and he was taking care of his mom at the time. And I was like, dude, I'm just looking at you, bro. I want you to make this team. Like, I'm going to do anything in my power to make sure that you got a fan base, because I am your fan. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him. I'll toss you one on the defensive end that I think should get people a little bit jazzed up this early. And that's Juan Thornhill. Juan Thornhill looks good, like really good. I think DeMonte KZ was fine. Like, I was a fan of DeMonte KZ. I thought for his role, he played it decent. Like, he was reliable. He was trying to kill people with every hit. And I respect that, like I do. If you're playing safety and you're 5'9" and you're ready to murder somebody at all times, hey, you know what? You deserve to be in the NFL as long as you are. Shout out. Juan Thornhill looks very impressive. He looks fast. He's talking up a storm out there. He was even impressed with himself, talking to the media the other day after he ripped the Browns a little bit, which I thought was awesome. He like said straight up, he was like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I didn't show up all OTAs, and I thought I was going to show up with some rust. I thought things were going to be bad, and he didn't. Like, he shows up. Maybe it's the visor. He's got the yellow chrome visor. Gives me Joe Hayden vibes, heavy, which is awesome. But he looks big. He looks fast. He looks like he knows where to be at all times. Juan Thornhill to me is a guy that could be a difference maker on this defense, because you're going to need a third safety. The Steelers love to run 3 safety sets. And it also allows guys like Deshaun Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick to move around. And I think that's big. Plus, Juan Thornhill could play the slot if need be. But Juan to me is a guy that he stood out. He's a sleeper in my eyes of who looked best at minicamp.
Yeah, I think the word fast there is what caught my eye immediately. He is quick and explosive for sure. So I think you combine that with the versatility that the Steelers already know that he can provide in the secondary. And yeah, sleeper is a sleeper / winner, someone who's under the radar going into the training camp still, but who could be a person that makes an impact, and an impact that is not predicted. Juan Thornhill is certainly one of those people. He looked quick as heck, and so many, the secondary in general looked both quick and explosive, all of the third day of camp. And I think that there is an emphasis on that, especially if they're going to continue to play, perhaps a zone heavy defense again. I think you need to have guys who have that closing quickness for sure. And so if that moves Juan Thornhill into more of a position to be on the field, then all right, works for me. But yeah,
It works for me.
impressive couple days with the Steelers he had.
I agree. All right. I got one more question for you. Then we'll start diving into everybody else's questions here. DK Metcalf, your first impressions of him. That could include how he looks like Darnell Washington, but ripped. So your thoughts?
For sure. You know what? There was a moment yesterday where he was standing pretty close to Darnell Washington, and it again was just like a reminder of how gigantic Darnell Washington is. Like,
yes.
DK Metcalf is like the sturdiest looking man I've ever seen. Like life. It seems like the stern of a ship could not disrupt him in water if they met. But standing close to Darnell Washington, you're like, whoa, Darnell's got a few inches on him.
Dude, Darnell's massive.
Darnell's massive.
That was the first time. Was that the first time you ever saw Darnell in person, or you saw him last year?
I saw him last year. Yeah, saw him last year, and was obviously like staring up at him like a kid in the front row of a movie screen. Yeah. But he's an imposing figure. But DK looked great. He looked. It's incredible that a man again that big can be that quick. Because he is like shifty, similar to like a Calvin Austin. It's hard to, I didn't have a lot of Seattle Seahawks games on my TV last year or over the past couple of years. But seeing him in person and seeing how sort of like twitchy the hips are and seeing how quick the feet are, despite that this man is, 6'3" or 4, whatever it is, it's impressive. And it makes me even more excited for the connection that is forming with him and Aaron Rodgers on offense. I think it is a connection and a duo that the Steelers have not had in the passing game. It kind of reminds me of, I'll throw a name out there of just, like a Plexico Burris, but bigger.
Bigger.
Bigger. Much bigger for sure. Much stockier and sturdier. But in terms of the length and the quickness within the entire body, it is very, very reminiscent of my boy Plax.
I agree. I agree. He is. Look at people say it's funny. I laugh because people talk to me and they ask me all the time, like, well, isn't George a big wide receiver? George is a tall wide receiver. George Pickens is tall. DK Metcalf is Darnell Washington if Darnell Washington had a six-pack. It's unreal how big DK Metcalf is. I've never seen just like when Darnell walked into the locker room last year, I was like, this is the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. DK walked in and I said, this is the most ripped man I've ever seen in my life. It is insane how large of a human being he is. It's crazy. I'll tell you a fun, the Darnell's rookie year, he was talking to me about boxing. He was real into boxing. And there's a boxing gym by us. And I was like, and I was looking to get into it. Like I was at the time I was into boxing and, I wanted to join that gym or a gym in East Liberty. And I was telling him about it. And he asked, he was like, you go? And I was like, I'm actually like set to sign up. Like, I've just been, just kind of messing around for a while. And, he was like, yeah, let me know. And all I envisioned in my head was me trying to box Darnell Washington and dying. Because that's what happens in that scenario is I die. Mm-hmm. I don't even get hurt. I'm physically dead. And it's wild. It's wild. But yeah, DK's massive. It's cool to see a massive team. I wish you got to see Donald Parham because somehow he looks just as big. It's like it's what the Steelers are looking for. And I'm gonna be honest, it's if you just look at it on paper, it's a very scary football team for sure. Yeah. All right. That's our biggest takeaways of minicamp, some winners, some standouts, some superstars that may be back. With that said, start tossing your questions in the chat. We're going to answer all of them right after this.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
All righty. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. If you got questions, toss them in the chat. We can't tell you guys how much we appreciate you guys. And with that said, we got two of them to kick it off here from Chris. Guys, I heard that Antonio Brown is wanted for attempted murder. I am very sad for his what is that word? Precipitous. Thank you. It's early fall. If true, this is just a very sad end for him. Yeah, I don't know all the facts. I'm not going to act like I do know all the facts of the situation. I do know it came out last night from the Washington Post. Look at AB on the field is still one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. Off the field, obviously has his issues. We'll see how this one goes. I can't even say it stinks, because like what stinks about it is the fact that there was attempted, if it's true that it happened, not that it happened from anybody. It more so stinks that it happened. All I'm hoping for is a resolution, justice to do its thing. But on the field again, AB still one of the best ever, which is just wild how far he's fallen. And to be honest, I never got to cover AB. So I can't, I try not to speak on him as a person because I don't know him, as well as I'd like to say I'd like to, so that I could kind of have an idea of the human that Antonio Brown is. But yeah, that story did come out last night. It's on the Washington Post. You can actually find it at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We put it out with all the details as well. Chris has another one here. I said yesterday that I thought the O-line was paramount to the Steelers offense. Have we signed a swing tackle yet? If not, what options are there? So the Steelers, from everything they've shown and everything I've heard, is that they have their swing tackle, and that's Calvin Anderson, and they feel he's good enough. Now, do I agree with them? Not really. I like Calvin Anderson. I think he's a good dude. I think as a third swing, as like a backup to the backup, I don't mind him at all. He's a pretty significant downgrade from, last year when he had Broderick Jones or Troy Fautanu was set to be your swing tackle, or the year before that when it was Chuksa Okorafor. Like, I just don't see him being that good, but they signed him to a 2-year deal. He's their idea of a swing tackle right now. And I don't expect it to change. Like, I expect him to be the guy heading into the season.
Yep, same. Yeah, all signs point to him being the swing tackle, and I don't think there are many other options, on the expanded roster right now or on the open market that the Steelers would anticipate or want to bring in right now. So yeah, I think it's Calvin or nothing right now.
It's Calvin or nothing. And again, we'll see what happens. I think last year he jumped on a moving train, didn't really work out that well, but that's their idea. And then Spencer Anderson, but he plays guard, and they're probably going to have him play everywhere, to be totally honest with you. Thomas, Cleveland Clowns are talking again. For a team that's constantly picking in the top 5, they need to stop talking. How much are we beating them by? Look at the Myles. What was your take on the Myles Garrett thing? Saying he's ready to put Aaron Rodgers in a graveyard.
I mean, I love when people say things that aren't necessarily backed up by what happens in real life, but continue to be confident nonetheless. Like, I find great enjoyment out of it. I love, kind of reminds me of like Tim Robinson sketches. Like, I think you should leave. Like, you're like, this guy just keeps saying it, but everyone's looking around like this. It's not happening, right? Like, this is not what's going on. So I love hearing what Myles Garrett has to say. His perspective to me is always very interesting because it's always so wrong. But beyond that, I didn't think much of it. I think the Steelers will probably whoop them one game, but I wouldn't be surprised if another game is pretty tight with pretty much any AFC North opponent. I'll probably say the same thing. I could just see a split happening at any time in the season. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Rodgers has a little, motivated game against him in one of the meetings because of it. Some bulletin board material never hurts.
No, I agree. And this is my take on talking smack in minicamp. First of all, it's hilarious because, like, Kenny Pickett's your quarterback, pal. Okay, let's breathe. Okay, let's start swimming before we start diving into the deep end. Okay, let's dip a toe. You couldn't have worded it any better. A guy who just talks and the confidence is there, even though the results are not, which is hilarious. but he's Myles Garrett. He's the NFL's, golden child. That's what he'll be. He is supposed to be the greatest defender of all time. I strongly disagree that he is, but those are just my probably slightly biased opinion. But there are certain guys in the NFL that over time you just don't talk smack to. Aaron Rodgers is one of them. Like you don't remember. I can still remember this day when I believe Logan Thomas, no, yep, maybe called out Tom Brady during it was their undefeated season or whatever. And he said, I don't remember what week it was like, we're going to beat him. And I've never, as a child, I sat through the worst of the worst. It was brutal. We all did. You know what I mean? I could remember sitting there watching Tommy Maddox getting blown out time and time again. And I was like, I'm watching this game till the end because you just never know. That was the only game I turned it off in like the third quarter. And I just said, I can't watch this anymore. Like this hurts. This hurts. And I wanted the guy to get released immediately. Like immediately. That is, you don't talk smack to great quarterbacks. It's just what it is. And maybe Aaron Rodgers isn't great anymore. If Ben was still here, you aren't talking smack to Ben. You know what I mean? If Peyton Manning in his last year, you weren't talking smack to Peyton Manning. Aaron Rodgers is the same way. But again, that's just who he is, man. That's who Myles Garrett's always been. And I think it's hilarious.
Yep.
Darian, how did Rock Taylor look? I want to have faith in him. To be honest with you, like Rock Taylor didn't really stand out to me during minicamp. I don't really, it's early. And come training camp, things could change, but I don't really look right now as Rock Taylor is a guy that's going to make the roster. The Steelers are going to keep 5, maybe 6 wide receivers. It's going to be DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Ben Skoranek will be number 4. Robert Woods would be my guess at number 5, but I don't think he's a guarantee to make the roster either where we sit here today. And then most likely they're going to bring in somebody else. So Rock's going to have to really be a stud. He hasn't stood out amongst the crowd so far. And until he does.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the one thing that stands out, especially in a mini camp situation, is that he has all of the physicality to match what the Steelers are sort of looking for and the players that they seem to be emphasizing in the offense for 2025. So there is a lot to like, but he seems to be a practice squad hopeful at this point. Like if I'm the Steelers, I'm hoping he can land on the practice squad for this year and then, excuse me, think about what he could do moving forward while given some opportunity to develop further and show what he could do. But yeah, it's hard to stick out in that wide receiver group right now because there's so many players that seem like they could be a viable 5th option on the 53-man roster. So Rock hasn't really separated himself in any sort of way, but it's, you see him run a few routes and catch a couple balls and you start to think, well, if he can do a little bit more consistently for sure. But I mean, he probably wasn't even the most impressive wide receiver yesterday. I thought Roman Wilson looked really good. And who was it? Scotty Miller.
Scotty Miller.
Yeah. Scotty Miller. Yes. Yeah, it was. Scotty Miller made an excellent catch during either like 7-on-7s or I know maybe it was a 2-minute drill. He made an incredible catch in the corner of the end zone. And so like there's plays like that just really stood out. And it unfortunately was not Rock making those plays, but I'm not giving up hope on him yet. He's got all the tools and the physicality and the physical makeup to maybe be something, but not yet.
I agree. The way I look at him now is let's get to training camp and see what happens, but wouldn't classify him as a winner of mini camp so far. Mm-hmm. I do want to address this one because this goes back to Chris's question. What happened to Dylan Cook? Dylan Cook is definitely an option and he is still around and he is healthy. I like Dylan Cook, to be honest with you. Like I'm a fan. I was stunned that Dylan Cook wasn't on the roster when he came back and was healthy, that they put him on the practice squad. To me, Dylan Cook is impressive. He's still raw to the position. I'm a big Dylan Cook fan. And what he could be as a swing tackle, that's competition for sure. And to be honest, I don't know who I like more, but I'm a big proponent of giving Dylan Cook a shot for sure.
Sure.
Name more. Super excited about DK and his character. Dude is helping Joey Porter Jr. learn, unlike our previous wide receiver 1 who was selfish and a bad teammate. Oh gosh, need more guys like DK Metcalf. look at George Pickens is showing up with a smile every day in Dallas. Every day in Dallas, probably because there's no income tax. But, I'd be smiling too, if we're going to be honest. I loved everything I've learned about DK in a short amount of time. Seems great. He seems like a really outgoing dude who is professional and just that's the best part about being a veteran is at some point in your NFL career, you kind of become one of two things. You become a guy who is professional, but isn't into displaying the professional side of you, or you become a guy who's just professional. And DK is very professional. He knows how to handle the media. He knows when to say things. He knows when not to say things. I'm going to be honest. Like DK was definitely out there sometimes during individual drills, just like jogging. And I was like, yeah, dude, he's zero need for this guy to be here. It's June. Let's just calm it down. But he's also standing on the sides, talking to Calvin, talking to Roman. When somebody needs him to go first in line, he's going first in line. When Aaron's talking to him, he's listening. Like that's the side of DK that I like, and I think it does stand out. I am a big fan of who DK, in my opinion, could become.
For sure. I will say there's become anytime my wife and I travel, we tend to always run into someone who's from Seattle. And so when we were on our recent trip during my contract dispute, my holdout, we met we met a pair of couples that were from Seattle, and of course football came up in the course of our conversations, and I asked them, like, what did you guys think about DK Metcalf? Like, were you guys fans of his and Russ and all that stuff? And the opinions on Russ were maybe a little mixed, and where things ended up with him, but not the case with DK Metcalf. They were very sad to see their top wide receiver leave and had nothing but great things to say from a fan's perspective. So I think that sentiment's just been echoed sort of across the league. Like, there's always stories about somebody, about something, but he seems to be the consummate professional. And, I know I said that Calvin Austin's sort of moving up the ranks as a leader, but it's definitely DK Metcalf's position group, and it's his to sort of like call the shots. So I agree. Big fan of his.
I agree. All right, this one's got me laughing. Potato salad. I heard what you said about potato salad the other day. Noah, macaroni salad is the favorite child. I get it. Can we play Cole Holcomb at fullback? Look it. It's like having twins, and sometimes you just look at them and you have to, be like, hey, Lucy, raise your hand. That's what we're at here. That's what we're at here. Look, there are two names that get mentioned very frequently in the Strackbine family, especially in the group chats, and that is potato salad and macaroni salad, because people love that you two exist. So shout out. All right. I apologize. So awesome. Cole Holcomb at fullback would be so dope. I look at Cole Holcomb look good. What were your thoughts on Cole Holcomb yesterday?
He looks good. He looks he looks healthy, which is just like the only thing that I wanted to see. And it makes me so elated for him as a player that, he's had so much of his playing career taken away from him due to injury, and the fact that he seems to be recovered from it just makes me pumped for him. But and it only helps the Steelers linebacker position for him to be healthy and effective. So he's the middle linebacker group's looking nice right now, and I'd love to see anyone at the fullback position just like sort of like torpedoing directly into oncoming defenders. So if that's cool, Holcomb, DJ Thomas Jones, Connor Hayward, whoever they want to throw in there, I don't care. Just full on dive into it.
I'm about it. Macaroni salad replied here. Yes, potato salad. You're cut. Unbelievable. I love you guys. You're awesome. You're so awesome. All right. I'm MF Tired with the first comment of the day today. Out of all the wide receivers that got traded the last 2 years, would you say DK is the best fit for the Steelers, even over Ayuk, who that we were all in for? Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, definitely. DK blocks. He's incredibly physical. He's a big body. Him over the middle to catching a slant just like already gives me chills a little bit. To me, DK fits exactly what the Steelers were looking for. He's, I don't know if you guys remember, but when Arthur Smith was absolutely killing it in Tennessee, you want to know who his wide receiver was? A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, you put them in a room together. Well, they do what they did at Ole Miss. and they are the same big physical nasty wide receivers. So yeah, no, I'm a big I do think that he's the best fit for Arthur Smith's offense since and I Brandon Ayuk was a close second, I will say, but you know, I gotta say the Steelers dodged a bullet on the Brandon Ayuk thing for sure.
Yeah, I've saved some money literally, and I absolutely, DK was the best fit, and I think he would have still been the best fit last year because Arthur Smith has a very clear idea of what the best sort of wide receiver fit is for his offense, and it's a player like AJ Brown, it's a player like DK Metcalf, and so the Steelers have that. So yeah, that's it all makes him the best fit for now, and now it's will it play out the same way once the season actually begins is the big question, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And we'll see what happens, but I'm optimistic. Nate Moore here. Did Roman Wilson have a bad week of OTAs? Why is everyone so sure Calvin Austin will be higher than him on the depth chart? I'll just say, like, it was like Roman didn't look bad for sure. Yeah, I thought he looked good. I thought he was impressive. I thought Calvin Austin was more impressive. Like, I think I think Roman's jump to Calvin's jump is not there yet. Like, Calvin took a bigger jump, I think, this offseason. So I'm only sure because I think Calvin Austin is a stud. Like, I think Calvin Austin is somebody that nobody should overlook, that got overlooked in the draft. I think his potential, what I saw his rookie year was awesome. Like, that was the first time Calvin showed up and George Pickens looked like a freak. And Calvin was making plays that I was trying to relay to everybody. Like, guys, Calvin Austin also looks really, really good. I think Calvin is a really good wide receiver. I think Roman's got potential to be a really good wide receiver. I think Calvin Austin's pretty close to there. So that's why I just think that I think Calvin Austin, if you go back and watch the tape last year, is open so much more than he got the football. And Aaron's going to be able to get him the football. He's never had a quarterback who's been able to. So it's nothing against Roman. It's more so like, I just think Calvin looks better. And it's not like, oh, they both look bad, Calvin's slightly better. No, I think they both look good. Calvin just looks better.
Yep. And the only other thing I'll add to that is that the coaching staff is also keenly like seeing this and already has Austin above Roman Wilson on the depth chart. Was it Azani who said so himself on the first day or second day of minicamp? One of the coaches said it. So yeah, I mean, I think the Steelers are giving him this opportunity to see if he can fully, grab onto it and cement that wide receiver 2 position. And that still remains to be seen, of course, as well, as long as all these other questions. But yeah, I mean, he impressed for sure. And I think he is already taking to the opportunity in front of him and kind of grabbing onto it. So no disrespect to Roman Wilson. It's great to see that he's back on the field. It's great to see progress from him in that regard. But yeah, it's right now, Calvin Austin is still the quote unquote bigger story of coming out of minicamp.
I agree. Nate's got another one here. Who will have a bigger jump catching passes from Aaron Rodgers this year, 88 or 19? While I think Calvin Austin's going to take a significant step forward this year, you want to know my bold prediction heading into 2025? Yeah. Pat Freiermuth's a Pro Bowler. But like, Pat Freiermuth's a Pro Bowler. I think, and if Travis Kelce didn't exist, and you just never know. Like, I get it, he's getting old, but you just never know. And if Brock Bowers didn't exist, I'd say Pat Freiermuth's an All Pro, and that's my bold prediction. But I'm going to stick it with a Pro Bowler. I think Pat has. Like, I think this is the year for Pat, man. Go back and watch. Just go watch Pat Freiermuth. Go pick 4 or 5 games last season, and just all 22 it so that you could get through it in 20 minutes. And just watch every rep Pat does. And I bet you in 4 games, 30 times, Pat is standing there wide open and nobody's looking at him. And you could tell, like, at times he's like hands up waving and then he just gives up. He's just like, he's not going to see me. Like, this is useless. Pat to me is going to have massive year. Absolutely massive year. That's my bold prediction.
Damn. I don't disagree with it, and I think there's certainly a possibility for that to happen. I think Calvin Austin will, if I had to bet, I think Calvin Austin will end up with more, a larger jump in receptions and passes caught this year because of Rodgers. But I don't think that would eliminate the possibility that Freiermuth has an improved season as well. I think everyone should see an improvement compared to 2024.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that one. But those two, I think, are very high up the list of guys who should go. And we got one more here on Calvin Austin before we change subject. I believe Calvin Austin could be Randall Cobb for Rodgers when Cobb was in the slot at Green Bay, and that would be I mean, Randall Cobb's a stud, like Randall Cobb did crazy things for a long time. If that's his ceiling, Randall Cobb was in the league for like 15 years, so and a starter for all 15 of them. So I'm not upset about that comparison at all. I think he's faster, but I like it.
Definitely faster. But there's not many people quicker than Calvin Austin. That man is like fleet of foot is not even an accurate description. That man is fast.
Crazy fast. All right. Marlon Lewis here. Who has more pressure this season, the rookies, second-year guys, or third-year guys? I think it's the third-year guys. To me, it's guys who are entering a year where this is it. If you ball out, you get a contract next offseason. If you don't, you go into the final year of your deal with a lot of questions. It's the sophomore slump is a real thing in the NFL. So to me, like the second year, there's a little bit of an excuse there, but the third year, you better bounce back and you better be good because that's when you get slapped with a label. So to me, it's the third year guys. And there's some big ones. Joey Porter Jr. headlines the full list there. That Broderick Jones is another one. Like if they're great, they're franchise players in Pittsburgh. If they stink, you don't know what's going to come after next season. Artie Burns, great example of that. Came out strong, fell flat in his second year, fell flatter in his third, gone. Totally washed by his fourth. So, which now he's a starter in Miami. So shout out to Artie Burns. But, I would say third year. Those would be my guys.
I agree 100%. I think the third year guys are certainly facing the most pressure. I mean, Porter has to rebound. I think Broderick Jones is probably facing the most pressure out of all those guys, in my opinion, just because he probably has the most to lose. I think even if Porter doesn't necessarily rein in the penalties, for example, if he's still one of the most penalized corners in the league, he still will be around. We'll just be talking about how much did this impact his next contract and how long he'll be around for, but he's still going to be a cornerback here. I think a player like Broderick Jones is certainly under the gun. You wouldn't know it by how he was at mini camp and OTAs and sort of the way he's proceeding. He's as confident as ever. But I think the third year players are all looking to take that next step in different ways, and the pressure's there for sure. The rookies, there's not a lot of pressure, but I do anticipate them being probably the most impressive class out of those three groups, just because, and we haven't really talked about it a lot today, but I mean, pick one. They're all very impressive, and they have shown that already in mini camps. So I think third year guys are under the gun. Second year guys, I'm not too worried about. Rookies, I'm not worried about pressure wise, but I think will probably play the biggest role.
Yeah, I agree. We'll piggyback onto that one. Kid TV or KD TV. What rookies and sophomores are you looking at this season? I mean, the rookies are easy. Caleb Johnson and Derek Harmon lead the list for me. But sophomores, I think, are more interesting. To me, it's Troy Fautanu, it's Zach Frazier, it's Mason McCormick. Those are the guys. But Peyton Wilson, dude. If Peyton Wilson's a stud, the Steelers have a star at inside linebacker, and that's huge. So I would go on the offensive side of the ball. It's all three of the offensive linemen. You guys make or break the success of the Steelers in 20. Like, let's be honest. The offensive line's great. The Steelers could do things. The offensive line stinks. Steelers aren't doing a damn thing. So offensive line, and then on the defensive side of the ball, it's Peyton Wilson in my eyes. Those are the guys.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I'm all about the offensive line. I think, we've been talking so much about the passing game and that part of the offensive attack for the Steelers this upcoming year, but it really comes down to what those three sophomore offensive linemen can do, and what Caleb Johnson, who is the most, important rookie. Derek Harmon might be the most impactful,
yes.
But Caleb Johnson is probably going to be the most important because he and Jalen Warren and the running game, started by the offensive line, of course, will dictate how far this offense can actually go.
I agree. And one more to piggyback off of that Pittsburgh Hornets. Who's the player you expect to have the most improvement from now until Latrobe? This is a good question, to be honest. I want to say now until Latrobe, like who's the guy that looked good at minicamp who might look great or look bad at minicamp and might look good at training camp? That's a good question. Kenneth Gainwell might be on that list.
Ooh.
Rogers is probably on that list for sure. Rogers looked good, but I'm excited to see what he could do in training camp. Roman's a name to watch for sure. Oh man, dude, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. Can I toss a sleeper out there that
Please.
we'll see? And this is just a shot in the dark, maybe. Deontay Kent, 7th-round pick. I think he's going to
Ooh.
make a run at the slot corner job. I do. I think he's got some speed, and I think he was a little bit overlooked in the draft. So I would go Deontay Kent. I'm excited to see what he does, and I'm not sold on Beanie Bishop yet. So that would be my guy. Would be Deontay Kent. But I think Roman Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Kenneth Gainwell are guys. To me, Kenneth Gainwell looked good, and I expect him, once you put pads on and you get some fans in front of you, he's making some plays that people are talking about for sure.
I think those are two excellent ones. I know we just talked about him a minute or two ago, but I think Broderick Jones, I don't want to say has the chance to become the most improved player over the next month, but I think he is in a very strong position to come into Latrobe and be like the standout immediately. I think that could come from hopefully not really being mentioned a ton once training camp begins, because he just comes in and is just like the steady left tackle for the offensive line. And I think he's, I spoke with him a bit yesterday, and he certainly seems in a similar way to everyone else in that locker room, just like calm and ready for the job,
Yeah.
and that was not the case, last year. There's been so much unsteadiness and back and forth between what the Steelers want out of him. Is he going to be the swing tackle? Is he going to play the left or right side? But it feels like there's a more definite plan in place for so many different pieces on the team this year, including Broderick. So I think that sets him up to kind of come into camp and be like, oh, okay. No, okay, this is the year that Broderick is going to be, an anchor of a tackle for the offensive line, and no more questions. So
I agree.
that's a big storyline question I'm gonna watch for once Latrobe opens up.
I agree. I mean, you got to meet him yesterday, and we don't have a lot of time left, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it. But Broderick, dude, once you meet him, he's a guy you want to root for, right? Like, he's a dude. Yeah, he's a good dude. All right. We'll lump a couple more together here. Hurt at practice. Unbelievable. How does A-Rod's mobility and footwork look? Way better than day one. Do I think it's great? No. Do I think that he's escaping the pocket and running for 40 yards a game? No. But I think it looked better than it did day one. I think he had some rust. I think shaking that rust off was big. And that's what I'm like. I think it leaves more room for improvement come Latrobe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think anyone's ever described Rodgers' footwork as being, anything other than good for a quarterback.
Man, I don't know, man. And Prime Rodgers,
quick.
Prime Rodgers
he had
was
some speed, and he had some nice runs. I'm not trying to criticize what his footwork was like back in the day. It was always, again, quarterback excellent. Let's call it that to be more. But yeah, it looks pretty good for a 20-year veteran of the NFL who had a recent surgery a couple years ago. It looks like he's not just going to be frozen in the pocket at any point for the Steelers during the 2025 season. So that all sounds good to me. Won't be Justin Fields elusive, won't be, kicking out the bootlegs and then running 30 yards uphill in 3 seconds. But I think he's got the quick step to get out of there. And if the pocket collapses, I think he can kind of move and still deliver a strike. So there you go.
I like it. To piggyback off that one, what are the odds Will Howard moves into the QB2 spot by the end of training camp? I'm put a percentage on it. I'm going to go 2%. 2%, like the milk. I'm going 2% on Will Howard. I just don't see it. The Steelers look at Mason Rudolph as a guy that they were comfortable starting going into this. If need be, he's going to be the guy that if they need him to spot start a couple of games, he's going to be the guy that gets it. I don't think Will's even going to get an opportunity, to be honest.
Yeah, it's 0% right now. I think he could be the QB2 in 2026, right? How things look. But yeah, there's no chance. Obviously, Skylar Thompson is the new backup. I'm just going to keep saying it until it's true, or until he inevitably does not make the team. But no, Mason's going to be the number 2, and Will Howard will maybe finish the season or start the season as number 3. 0% chance right now of number 2.
Yeah, I agree. Maddie here. What do you think the running back depth chart looks like come week 1? My prediction is simple. Jaylen Warren is the number 1. Who Jaylen Warren looks really good right now, like really good. Caleb Johnson as the number 2, but like the 1B, they're going to split reps, 55, 45, somewhere in that number. Kenneth Gainwell, number 3. People are going to be really surprised at how much Kenneth Gainwell plays this season. I'm telling you right now, the Steelers, the moment he tore them up in Philadelphia, said, yeah, that guy's coming to Pittsburgh and he's going to play a significant amount of snaps. That's exactly what happened. And then if I had to guess, it's Trey Sermon as the 4 if they keep 4. But I'm not sold that they're gonna keep 4. To me, it's Jaylen Warren, Caleb Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell, and if they need another guy, cool. If not, they're very comfortable with that 3.
Yeah, I think that, man, I genuinely have no idea what the 4th running back, who that would be for the Steelers, because I think they're just not really concerned with it at this point. But yeah, Jaylen Warren is without a doubt the number 1, but Caleb Johnson's just going to keep sort of forcing the Steelers' hand and earning more and more touches as the season progresses. So yeah, I think he's probably comfortably the number 2. He'll be listed as the number 2 when the Steelers put out their official depth chart, if I had to guess. But I don't think that will sort of reflect the usage once the season begins.
I agree. Yinzer Joe, Connor Hayward played some fullback. Is this something they keep pursuing, or do they eliminate that altogether? If they keep the position, can they find a legitimate fullback? Connor Hayward added a couple of pounds this offseason to play fullback. I thought he looks much better at the position this year than last year. They're hoping DJ Thomas Jones gives him a run for his money. I don't think they're going to go out and sign. I mean, they tried to sign Kyle Juszczyk and it didn't work, but they want a fullback. And I think right now they're going to look between those two and see what happens. I don't know. Do you have high hopes that Connor Hayward could become that guy at any point in his career after what you've seen so far?
It has nothing to do really with Connor Hayward and what he can or can't do for the Steelers. I just don't think the team is prioritizing a fullback proper. I think it would be a nice development. Like, again, if TJ Thomas Jones is just like a continuous standout at training camp and in the preseason, and I don't think Arthur Smith or Tomlin are going to be mad about a fullback coming in that gives them more reason to utilize one. But they're not going to force a player, force a square peg into a round hole just to have a fullback and to line up in the I formation more times than they did in 2024. So I just don't think the Steelers are really keen to add a fullback unless it really, really stands out to them and someone blows them away. So I think they still like Connor Hayward as a depth tight end, and he's in the competition to be one of the final people on the roster because of it. But I don't see him becoming a true fullback and making like the position switch to fullback.
All right, keeping a truck in here as we close these out. Is Amari Cooper really not on the Steelers' radar? He's pretty reliable. Didn't have a great season last year, but is still solid and we would be a great number 2 or 3 next to DK and Calvin. From everything I've been told, the Steelers are not looking at him or Keenan Allen. They're looking at younger guys, younger options. I expect them to bring somebody in. And if they're the only options come August, different conversation. But I expect teams to open up the door for Chris Olave's or Trey Palmer's or whoever. And I think that's the way they're going to go about it. I don't view right now Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen unless you feel differently.
No, I continue to stand by him not being on their radar or really a viable option. I think the Steelers will. It's a much safer bet to assume the Steelers will go into the season with, the position group they have now or someone who is cut or traded away from a team they are currently on than Amari Cooper signs or Keenan Allen signs. I just don't think they're realistic options for the Steelers at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Justin here. Do you think Aaron Rodgers' brain and processing can actually help the defense? I think he will pick our defense apart, which can help them improve. I agree. I think it'll be the first time in a couple of years that the defense, playing Kenny wasn't like a struggle. Playing Mitch wasn't a struggle. Playing Justin was definitely opened up the door a little bit. You didn't get any of Russ. I think Aaron Rodgers is the first guy that is going to challenge defenses, is going to, really make them think, because Aaron Rodgers at the end of the day might not win you 15 games, but he's smart enough that when you put him on a practice field, he's going to know how to play with guys. He's going to know how to beat you here. And if he could do that a couple times in practice, I do think he's good. So I want to say yes. I think what Aaron Rodgers brings more than anybody is 18, 19 years of just really smart football. And that's going to help. That's something the Steelers haven't had since Ben. And things Minka, Deshaun, Darius Slay, Joey Porter Jr., they're going to be able to rely on for sure.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
All right, Rex 7 here. 2 months, a quick one. If Allen Lazard comes in or any other subpar wide receiver 2 or 3 comes in, who takes a bigger hit in the depth chart? To be honest, if I'm going to be really honest, and there's another one here from Clifford. How did Robert Woods look catching him get clipped a lot in catching reps? Robert Woods looks fine. He looks like a very reliable wide receiver. But if I had to guess who the odd man out is, if the Steelers do add a wide receiver and don't keep 6, is probably Robert Woods. I just don't think there's a space for him. If they're going to go get an Allen Lazard, you're going to keep Ben Skoranek because he's a great special teamer. You're going to keep Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin and DK. If you're keeping 6, Robert Woods is the guy. If you're keeping 5, I would guess Robert Woods is the guy that gets next. That would be my guess.
Yeah, he would definitely be on the chopping block, and I fear that someone like a Roman Wilson would suffer from lack of snaps on offense. Would not be a casualty of the roster or cut candidate or anything like that. But if Allen Lazard does come in, and he is brought in, specifically because of his relationship with Aaron Rodgers in this hypothetical, I think it would kind of push Roman Wilson down the field unless he just is a superstar emerging or a star wide receiver emerging that no one is seeing right now or anticipating. But yeah, that's it. Bobby Trees is probably going to be the one to take the hit.
Yeah, I would imagine. All right, we'll finish it off with this one. Adam, Jacob, what's the best and worst part of having Noah as a boss? Good. Ears are wide open here, pal.
Here we go. Let me tell you something. No, the best and worst part is honestly easy for me to answer, and it's not even that bad. It's just the fact that Noah and I have been buddies for a couple of years, so sometimes I have to remember the fact that he is my boss, and so we are just pals, which is the best part. And he and I have been, just we hang out outside of the show. That's sort of how we got to know each other better. But it also is the fact that oh yeah, my buddy needs me to do something by a certain timeline. Most of my other friends don't have that expectations of me. So, and he pays me. So that's, there's a little bit of a
and the paycheck. I'll be honest. It's the same going the other way. It's with everybody. Anybody, when Nick was on the show, we'd constantly be like, well, you're my boss. And I'm like, yeah, I am, aren't I? That's a real thing, huh? I don't know. We just do our thing, man. We have a good time here. Shout out to Chuck Lung. My man, Chuck, gifted an All Steelers Talk membership. Shout out. And with that said, guys, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, enjoy a beautiful weekend in the Berg. Peace.